What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So today I'm going to be reviewing The Substance, which is written and directed by Coraline Fargeau. Hopefully that was in the ballpark of how you pronounce it. But The Substance is a movie that I pretty much didn't know anything about going into. I mean, I watched the trailer for it because it played before one of the films I saw in theaters, but the trailer that I saw was really sparing and stylistic with how it was presenting itself, and I didn't understand conceptually what the movie was going to offer from watching that trailer. So, you know, I went into this movie kind of blind and was just expecting something that was unique and energetic. And it definitely was that. But it was a whole lot more. There is nothing I could say to you guys that can properly prepare you for this movie's experience. Because even if I explained every bit, like if I explained everything about this movie from every little detail, that still would not prepare you, because experiencing this is a whole other thing from knowing it. And it's because stylistically and visually, it feels like such an assault to the senses in like every single way possible. Whether it be the use of sound throughout the film. I think the sound design is incredible throughout this movie. Just really like immerses you into these visceral moments. But also, like, what we see in this movie, and like, stylistically speaking, like, the way that it shows us everything through its style and through the absolute, it just creates an absolute monstrosity of an experience. And once you see this movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's just never boring. It's constantly engaging. It's constantly unique. And it's funny because, like, conceptually speaking, like, once the film introduces its concept, it does feel like something that we've seen before, right? Like, it feels like, okay, I know where this movie is gonna head. Like, I know what the demise of the character is gonna be. I know the conflicts what our character's gonna face. Like, and the movie does do those things. Like, it goes to where you would predict in that regard. But in terms of what it offers visually and this big curveball that it throws at the very end, like the last 20 minutes, was something that I did not see coming personally. And it's just, again, just such a fucking, like, abominable experience, but a really rewarding one, and a really just, again, it feels like it's totally its own thing. And it almost feels like a mosh-podge of different influences and different genres of filmmaking. Because, like, in one way, I think this movie is mostly like a sci-fi body horror, like something that you would expect out of a Cronenberg movie or something like that. Definitely, that's like the main thing of this movie. But in another way, it's also got like outrageous, like, B-grade horror fun in it. And then another way, it's like a satirical comedy. Because I think one thing you have to prepare yourself when you go into this movie is that it's a very, like, especially with all the way that the characters are written, not the main characters necessarily, but like all the characters surrounding the main character, like all the side characters, especially the men in this movie, it's very cartoony. Like, it's very, none of the dialogue they say, especially the way that they deliver it, it feels intentionally over the top and on the nose for the sake of satire, for the sake of comedy and humor. So just know that that's kind of what you're going to be getting into. Don't expect, like, something that feels natural in terms of dialogue delivery, because it is not that at all. It's not even trying to be that. But, you know, it blends all these different things together and creates, again, just a monster of a movie. It is just, it gets so outrageous. Like, once you think that it's already, like, it's hit its peak, and this is how, like, it's gonna end here, and it's got as crazy as it's gonna get, it just keeps up in the ante. It just keeps putting the pedal to the metal, just keeps somehow finding ways to get even fucking more batshit and bananas. And it just keeps going, and then finally, like, ends where it does, and I'm like, cool, because it did hit a point where I'm like, does this movie know how to end? Like, is it just continuing to do crazy stuff? It doesn't really know where to end. But then it ends on a scene that I think is fantastic. Like the actual final shot of this movie, fantastic. But yeah, look, this is, if you're squeamish in any way, don't, I mean, if you want to challenge yourself, by all means, but if you can't tolerate stuff like that very well, just, it ain't gonna be for you, man. It ain't gonna be for you. Because it's relentless in that department too, like relentless. Especially like after a certain point, it's like every scene is like just making me fucking cringe in my seat, like barely being able to watch it. I didn't turn away completely, but there's like a lot of portions of this movie where I'm just like, it's just so much. It just, again, it just feels like a complete assault to the senses in so many ways. And it just doesn't stop for such a long time. But yeah, I mean, like thematically speaking, I think this movie is actually quite important because it, like, basically, I think, in my opinion, the main theme of this movie is about the unfair beauty standards that is imposed on women by a male-oriented system, and how, you know, women psychologically suffer from that as they age, because not only are they losing career opportunities, but they're constantly comparing themselves to other women, and makes it to where they don't see a lot of value in their current self and for the rest of their lives. And I feel like, you know, we have industries that prey upon women because of that knowledge, aka the plastic surgery industry. If that's even how you call the industry. But yeah, like just the industry of plastic surgery. I feel like this movie is a huge metaphor for plastic surgery. Just because you can draw so many connections between that and this. Like everything just seems to connect in that regard symbolically. And you know, it's unfortunate. It's true. Like I think that's a very important message of this movie, to where, you know, in industries like really just any like media industry, whether it's film, music, or modeling, you know, women and men, because there is a male character in this movie that, you know, is suffering through the same thing. And I'm kind of glad this movie incorporated that, because it's not just women, it's also men. But I think women I think they're the ones that suffer like way more, like in general, when it comes to stuff like this. But yeah, like it's just always this uphill battle of feeling like you constantly need to enhance your body. You need to, you know, make changes to yourself, whether it's your body or your face, in order to kind of keep your career opportunities alive. And, you know, that's a huge message of this movie. And I think ultimately it's like a huge cautionary tale, just a gigantic cautionary tale on how, you know, women and men need to do their best to just embrace the part of their life that they're in. You're not going to be young forever. Sometimes it is time to just move on to a different stage of your life and, you know, age with grace is how some people say it. And I think that is very, very important. And again, it's not easy. Clearly, in industries like this, it is like the most difficult thing in the world to do. But I think it is important that you just love yourself and you just embrace where you are in life. And I like that about this movie, because I think it's a very important and valuable lesson. And yeah, you know, I praise the actresses that are in this movie, because Demi Moore, she has a huge task in this movie. And again, considering thematically what I just said about plastic surgery, I think it's incredibly noble and brave of her to tackle this, you know, a character that is revolving around this intense subject matter and personal subject matter, because for such a long time in her life, she's been criticized by the media and tabloids about her, you know, overuse of plastic surgery. And I think for her to participate in this movie is, again, like admirable as hell. I think that's awesome. And then even beyond that, what she has to do in this movie is fucking crazy. Like, holy shit. Like the whole second half of this movie, what the fuck? It is insane. I have to also commend the makeup effects and the practical effects, because holy shit, like the makeup prosthetic work in this movie, some of the most crazy but also just impressive shit I've seen in a long time in a movie. Swear. And when you watch, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But it is just insane to see what I saw and to see Demi Moore portray what I saw. Just very like unflattering and horrific shit. And then Margaret Qualley, again, she's like, without giving the movie's concept away really, she's in this movie kind of try to represent the ideal conventional beauty standard, right? And that's why we get like images of her like at every angle, like just imagine a camera angle capturing Margaret Qualley. This movie fucking has it. And to be honest, it does hit a point where I'm like, I get it, we get it. Margaret Qualley's hot as shit. All right, I was like, if I see, look, I'm not complaining. All right, I like to see ass shots of Margaret Qualley any day of the week. But it did hit a point where I'm like, if I see one more ass shot of Margaret Qualley that is there for no other reason except to be like, look how fucking hot she is, I'm like, you know, let's just move on, you know, to something else. But I do understand why it's there though. Like, it makes sense why there was so much kind of like repetition on it and focus on it, and yeah, like it just makes sense. But it did get to the point where I'm like I kind of wanted it to move on a little bit, like thematically and narratively, like let's keep it moving. But yeah, but even Margaret Qualley, like what she has to do in this movie too, especially in the third act, fucking crazy shit, man, just crazy shit. The dedication from the actress and what she was willing to do is fucking crazy in this movie from both of them, just absolutely insane. But I think definitely Demi Moore and what she had to do was it's just absolute crazy shit. But I mean, look, in terms of criticisms I have of this movie, I do think that we have to suspend a lot of disbelief. That's number one. There gets to a point where you're like, okay, even in this movie's logic and even in this movie's crazy world that it's built, you still have to kind of suspend disbelief to an incredible degree at a certain point, to where it's just so like silly and unreasonable that it can kind of take you out a little bit. At least that was it for me. And again, I'm not going to go into exact details because I want y'all to go into this not knowing these very specific things. But it just doesn't like even make any sense at all in some ways. And then the third act of this movie, even though it's bananas and I really like it for what it is, again, you have to suspend disbelief to where it's like how our character like narratively progresses and gets to A to B. It just doesn't even make sense. Like, it's just, I feel like the filmmaker was kind of forcing this narrative progression just to get to where she wanted to be in the movie for her own like thematic purposes, but realistically, like, it just doesn't make sense. You know, I got to a point where I thought, okay, this might be a dream sequence or this might be fake or whatever, but you know, I feel like it hits a point where that's not even a possibility. But who knows? Maybe if I watch it again, that won't be the case. But even like how crazy the movie is, like it got, I don't know, like as fucking wild as it is. You know what? No, I was gonna say something, but I don't think I agree with that, because I do think that this film offers a lot thematically. I was gonna say maybe as crazy as it is, it could have offered more, but I don't even know why I thought that. I think thematically there's plenty here. There really is plenty. Maybe it's just because of the fact that I do think there's parts of the movie that get a little bit like repetitive. But that's not really that much of an issue for me. And also there are parts of this movie where I feel like it's spoon feeding us too much information. Well, it's not really spoon feeding. Well, it is, but it's more about how it's insistent on reinforcing information that was already visually conveyed to us or conveyed to us in some other way. But then there's like some parts where I'm like, needed to make sure like 3 different times in one scene that we understood something, and I'm like, dude, we get it. And there's like a handful of moments in this movie that are kind of like that, where it's just like, hey, do you get it? You know, here's a character saying this line again just to make sure you understand what's going on in the character's head. Or if you understand like the theme of what I'm going for in this moment. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's things about this movie that obviously like I love to death, and I mostly love this movie, mostly. But there are some elements about it that bug me a bit, and I don't know, I feel like would have been better off if it just wasn't even in there. But I don't know. I'd probably stop rambling now about the movie, because I mostly really did love it, and it's such a unique experience, and it's just a crazy experience, and I can't wait for more people to watch this movie, because it's going to be such an interesting conversation. Like, this is going to be, I really, really want to hear and see some comments in the comment section about what y'all think of this movie, because this is such a great, like, discussion piece. So yeah, that's all I'll say about the movie, guys. I'll go and give it a rating. I'll give it a strong 8 out of 10 for now. Who knows on second viewing? I mean, it could go up or down. I could somehow like it less, but I could somehow also like it more. I don't know. It's just that kind of movie. Like, it's just crazy. But yeah, that's all I'll say about the movie. If you really enjoy what I had to say about The Substance, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.